Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 O my Lord, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayeshu vapajyeshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Before reciting service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead. The ending shlokas, and they're also filled with a lot of nectar. So we'll be reciting verse 45 first, and then we can... Yes, please. 45. Ready? Yan me tunadi grahamedi sukham hitucham. Yan me tunadi grahamedi sukham hitucham. Kandu ye nena karayori vadukha dukham. Kandu ye nena karayori vadukha dukham. Tripyanti neha kripana bahu dukha bhaja. Tripyanti neha kripana bahu dukha bhaja. Kanduti van manusijam vishaheta dhira. Kanduti van manusijam vishaheta dhira. Janmai tunadi grahamedi
sukham hitucham.
Yan me tunadigrahame sukham hitucham.
Kripayanti neha kripana bahu dukha bhajan.
Kripayanti neha kripana bahu dukha bhajan.
Kandu tiva manasi jam visareta dhira.
Kandu tiva manasi jam visareta dhira.
Yanmatunadigrahamedi sukham hitucham.
Yan me tunadigrahame sukham hitucham.
Kandu yanena karayoriva dukha dukkam.
Kandu yanena karayoriva dukha dukkam.
Kripayanti neha kripana bahu dukha bhajan.
Tripyanti neha kripana bahu dukha bhajan.
Will you try? That's okay. Thanks.
Kandu tivan manasijam shahita dhira.
Kandu vitan manasi jam vishaheta dhira.
Yanmahirtunandi grihamedi sukham hichunam.
Yan me tunadigrahame sukham hitucham.
Kandu yanena karayoriva dukha dukkam.
Kandu yayena karayoriva dukha dukkam.
Tripyanti neha kripana bahu dukha bhajan.
Tripyanti neha kripana bahu dukha bhajan.
Kandu tivan manasujam vishaheta dhira.
Kandu tivan manasijam vishaheta dhira.
Yanmaitanadigrahame sukham hitucham.
Yan me tunadigrahame sukham hitucham.
Kandu yanena karayor eva dukha dukkam.
Kandu yanena karayoriva dukha dukkam.
Kripayanti neha kripana bahu dukha bhajan.
Tripyanti neha kripana bahu dukha bhajan. Kandu tivan manasijam
Jayeta dhira.
Kandu tivan manasijam vishaheta dhira. Okay. Okay, Jai. We'll read synonyms all together. Yada, that which is meant for material gratification. Naitunadi, represented by the talking of sex, reading sexual literature, or enjoying sex life at home or outside as in a club. Ramedi Sukham, all types of material happiness based on attachment to family, society, friendship, etc. Hai, insignificant. Kanduyana, with the itching. Karayo, with the two hands to relieve the itch. Eva, light. Dukha dukham, different types of unhappiness, into which one is put after itching gratification. Tripyanti, become satisfied. No, never. Iha, in the material gratification. Prabhana, the foolish person. Bahudukha Raja, addicted to various types of material unhappiness. Kanduti, which is simply a mental concoction. Actually, there is no happiness. Vishaheta, and tolerate such itching. Data, he can become a most perfect, sober person. Jai, translation altogether. Sex life is compared to the rubbing of two.
Sorry. All together, slowly.
Yes, thank you.
Sex life is compared to the rubbing of two hands to relieve an itch. Brahmanis, so-called grahastas, who have no spiritual knowledge, think that this itching is the greatest platform of happiness, although actually it is a source of distress. Their karmas, are not satisfied by repeated sensuous enjoyment. Those who are Dina, sober and with all beseeching, are not subjected to sufferings of fools and rascals. Yes, Prabhu. No, we'll wait. Okay, so since we're concluding Prahlad Maharaj's prayers, I thought that it would be nice if we could just get a short summary of what we have to learn from Prahlad Maharaj's prayers. Could we get the document, Prabhu? You'll get the opportunity to read, Prabhu.
No, I want to read.
Everyone will get the opportunity to read.
Like all of us are getting that?
I'll try my best throughout the lecture. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Glorification of Lord Narasimha.
Very good.
I doesn't want you to read.
Rather began by offering thoughts of sincerity to Lord Narasimha, recognizing his transcendental form and power. He acknowledges that the Lord appears in various forms to protect his devotees and destroy demonic forces. Despite the Lord's ferocity, Prahlad perceives him as a loving protector, particularly for his devotees. The highlights how the same Lord who is terrifying to the demon is savior for the devotees.
Chai. Vishaka Prabhu.
Humility in the face of devotion. Although Prahlad is only a young child, he recognizes that devotion is not dependent on material qualifications such as age, birth, or knowledge. He humbly submits that even the great demigods and learned sages might feel unqualified to offer prayers, his sincere devotion empowers him to pray. He emphasizes that it is only through devotion that one can approach and glorify the Supreme Lord, and not through wealth, power, or intelligence.
Amala Harinam Prabhu.
Material entanglement. Prahlada speaks about the pitiful condition of materialistic people who are attached to sense gratification and family life. He described how such people absorbed in material pursuits are unaware of real goal of the life, liberation and service to Krishna. He outlines how these people become entangled in a cycle of birth and death, suffering due to their attachment to temporary pleasures.
Raja Prabhu.
Helplessness in material existence. Prahalada explains that those without knowledge of the Supreme Lord are caught in the ocean of material existence, which is difficult to cross. Only by taking shelter of the Lord can one be liberated from this ocean of repeated birth and death. He conveys the helpless state of conditioned souls who try to enjoy this material world without understanding their real eternal nature.
Monal Prabhu.
Dependence on Lord's mercy. Prahlad prays that only by the mercy of the Lord one can be free from material illusions and attachments. He emphasizes that human efforts alone is not sufficient to overcome the influence of Maya illusion. Prahlad expresses his complete dependence on Lord's mercy and prays that all living beings may receive the Lord's compassion, and so they can turn towards him in devotion.
Rohan Prabhu.
Universal compassion. Despite his personal deliverance, Prahlad is concerned about the welfare of all souls suffering in material existence. He prays for the deliverance of not only himself but also the conditioned souls lost in material life. This shows Prahlad's deep compassion and broad-mindedness, as he doesn't seek liberation solely for himself but for all living entities.
The nature of the Supreme Lord. Prahlad describes the Supreme Lord's transcendental qualities and how he is beyond the influence of material nature. He glorifies Krishna as eternal, blissful, and omnipotent source of all creation. He recognized that Krishna is the controller of the material and spiritual worlds, and that his mercy alone can grant liberation.
Conclusion, pure devotion. Prahlad concludes by declaring that pure devotion to Krishna is the ultimate goal of life. He emphasizes that serving the Lord with love and without any material motivation is the only way to achieve real peace and happiness. He prays for unwavering devotion and the ability to always remember and serve the Lord.
Try. So this might not be perfect, but this is how I personally.
You wrote it? Was very
This is what I took from the prayers and what I feel like I could apply in my life and use it in situations where necessary. So starting from, when Nrsimhadev appears, Prahlad Maharaj, at first, he was just in awe, and it was difficult for him to start offering prayers because he considered himself unqualified. He said that even the greatest of all creation, Brahma, he could not pacify you with, he could not, what is it said? Impress you with his prayers. So what to speak of me who is born in a family of demons. But Prahlad Maharaj, he still offered his prayers with his whole heart. And we see that all the demigods and everyone in the assembly, everyone who was present, everyone who was looking over, they were all terrified of the ferocious form of the Lord. But Prahlad Maharaj, he says that I'm not even a bit afraid or scared by this ferocious form because I know that you took this form to save me. And I just love this so much. So Srila Prabhupada, in one of the purports, he says that the ocean is everyone in the creation is fearful of the ocean because it's gigantic, it's humongous, right? But a small fish is not afraid of the ocean and it swims. So because the fish has taken the shelter of the ocean. So Prahlad Maharaj, since he surrendered himself fully to the Lord and he had taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he wasn't afraid of the Lord. And then Prahlad Maharaj, he goes on to talk about material engagement that people just do for sense gratification because they're unaware of the real purpose of life. And they get entangled into all kinds of activities which results in some kind of results, and then it binds them to this world. And then he also talks about the helplessness of the jivatma, of the souls, because the soul wandering across various species and worlds and taking millions and millions of births is just helpless because they cannot help themselves not satisfy their senses. They just can't. Because they don't know any better. So Prahlad Maharaj talks about helplessness. And then he talks about dependence on the Lord's mercy. That although we as spirit souls, we're lost in this material creation, but by the mercy of the Lord's devotees, we've found the lotus feet of the Lord. And so by depending on the Lord's mercy, we can get free from this material entanglement and go back to Godhead. He talks about the supreme nature of the Supreme Lord as well, that he is eternal, blissful, omnipotent, and the source of all creation. This is something that we'll be touching in today's class as well. And then, so let's start by reading the purport of text 45. Nityananda Prabhu.
Materialistic things that the
Prabhu.
Materialistic thing that sexual indulgence is the greatest happiness in this world, and therefore they make elaborate plans to satisfy their senses, especially the genitals. This is generally found everywhere and specifically found in the Western world, where there are regular arrangements to satisfy sex life in different ways. Actually, however, this has not made anyone happy. Even the hippies, who have given up all the materialistic comforts of their fathers and grandfathers, cannot give up the sensational happiness of sex life. Such persons are described here as kripanas, misers. The human form of life is the greatest asset, for in this life one can fulfill the goal of existence. Unfortunately, however, because of lack of education and culture, People are victimized by false happiness of sex life. Prahlad Maharaj therefore advises one not to be misled by this civilization of sense gratification, especially not by the sex life. Rather, one should be sober, avoid sense gratification, and be Krishna conscious. Lusty person who is compared to the foolish miser never gets happiness by sense gratification. The influence of material nature is very difficult to surpass, as stated by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 7.14.
Mam eva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite.
If one voluntarily submits to the lotus feet of Krishna, he can be saved very easily.
Jai. Shaka Prabhu.
In reference to the low-grade happiness of sex life, Yamunacharya says in this connection, Yada Devi Mama Chaita Krishna Vadara Vinde Nava Navara Sadhama Yudayata Rantumasit Tatvavadi Batanari Sangame Smaranyame Mane Bhavati Mukha Vikara Sushti Nishthavanancha. Since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought and my lips curl with distaste. Yamunacharya had formerly been a great king who enjoyed sexual happiness in various ways. But since he later engaged himself in the service of the Lord, he enjoyed spiritual bliss and hated to think of sex life. If sexual thoughts came to him, he would spit with disgust.
Jai. Those are some very strong words.
Very strong.
Yeah. So this verse specifically, it talks about the material entanglement. People who lack understanding of the Supreme Lord are easily trapped by both the gross and subtle material pleasures. Now we're talking about gross and subtle material pleasures. We'll touch upon that. The gross ones are, the ones like sense gratification, wealth, and status, while some subtle material pleasures are ego, fame, intellectual pursuits that do not lead to spiritual realizations. So those are some kinds of material pleasures that people are attracted to, and they do activities based on that, and they're entangled in this material world. We'll go on and read the translations of the next few verses until 50.
O Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are 10 prescribed methods on the path of liberation: to remain silent, not to speak to anyone, to observe vows, to amass all kinds of Vedic knowledge, to undergo austerities, to study the Vedas and other Vedic literatures, to execute the duties of Varnashrama Dharma, to explain the Shastras, to stay in a solitary place, to chant mantras silently, and to be absorbed in trance. These different methods for liberation are generally only a professional practice and means of livelihood for those who have not conquered their senses. Because such persons are falsely proud, these procedures may not be successful.
Okay, we'll discuss and then we'll read the next ones. I'll remember you. Okay, so the first, Srila Prabhupada, I was reading one of his lectures, and Srila Prabhupada, he talks about the first thing that is mentioned here, which is mona. Mona is translated as, silence. Silence vows that people, saints so-called, they take. They go to a secluded place and they refuse to talk to people. And we hear about them a lot, right? Prahlad Maharaj here, he says that that thing is for Ajitendriyanam. Ajitendriyanam are the people who are unable to control their senses. So Maunavrata and all these practices, they're only recommended for people who want liberation and not to go back to Godhead. So these practices, these 10 practices that are mentioned, they're only for liberation and they're recommended for people who are Ajitendriyana, who cannot control their senses. So Srila Prabhupada says that it is better to not talk if you can't talk nice things, right? It is better to not talk than talk foolish. So those are some very strong words that I felt like, wow, okay. So for people, since we live in this material world, all the talks that people are engaged in, the materialistic, mundane talks, they're all foolish talks, according to Srila Prabhupada. And I agree with that. And that is why Srila Prabhupada says that he mentions very clearly that it's like croaking of a toad. Just ka, 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 and nothing else. Because it doesn't have any kind of meaning, it doesn't have any kind of higher purpose, and it doesn't help you with anything. But it gets you more entangled in the material life. And so Srila Prabhupada says that Vacha Vegam, it's important to control the urges of the tongue. And yeah, all the processes are for those who have no interest whatsoever in going back to Godhead. And it is said that you cannot stop your tongue from working, right, at all. Even if you observe Mona Vrata to control one of your senses. Have you ever encountered any of those people who take Mona Vratas, like ever?
Yeah, I did it.
Right? So what happens when you don't know that they're following that vow and you try to talk to them? Yeah, they do that, or they write on a piece of paper and they show it to you. So to stop one of their senses from engaging in any kind of activity, they're using their other senses. So it's impossible to not engage any of your senses in any kind of activities. It's just impossible, right? So if you cannot stop, if the tongue is made to talk, then better use it for talking about the glories of the Lord, right? So that's what Srila Prabhupada was talking about. A devotee, he said, has no need to be silent. It is not our business. Satatam kirtayantamam. Anyone knows that shloka 7:14 from Bhagavad Gita? Jagadatma Prabhu? Yatantascha drilavrata. Namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. We memorized it together. Okay, so Satatam,
But you started reciting it.
because he was unable.
He needs time.
I will take that into account, Prabhu. Thank you. Satatam kirta yantumam, always chanting the glories of the Lord, and yatantascha drilavrata, endeavoring with full determination. Srila Prabhupada says that is our business, chanting the glories of the Lord eternally. That's our business, and that's what we have to do. So in this verse, Prahlad Maharaj, he doesn't condemn, but condemn the 10 processes stated for liberation, but he kind of says that as devotees, we have no interest in all of this. As devotees, we don't even need to know what kind of processes these are, and we should not engage in all of this because it's not meant for us. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, I wanted to read Raja Prabhu.
By authorized Vedic knowledge, one can see that the forms of cause and effect in the cosmic manifestation belong to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the cosmic manifestation is energy. Both cause and effect are nothing but energies of the Lord. Therefore, O my Lord, just as a wise man, by considering cause and the effect, can see how fire erects wood, those engaged in devotional service understand how you are both the cause and effect.
Chai. So, as described in the previous verse, many so-called students of spiritual understanding, they follow these 10 different processes. And while these may be attractive, one cannot understand the real cause and effect and the original cause of everything. And when looking for the reason, when looking for the purpose of why we want higher education and why we want to understand things in life, why we pick up spirituality, we're trying to answer some of the big questions, like what is my purpose? Who created all of this? Who created me? Who's behind all of this? Who's the cause of all causes? And so who is the cause and effect? And who is the cause of all causes? Who is it?
Krishna.
Krishna. And in Brahma Samhita, Let's recite all together. It is Satchidananda Vigraha Anade Adi Govinda Sarvakaranam. Prabhu, thank you very much. And Lord Brahma is trying to say that that Krishna is the origin of all and the prime cause of all causes, right? Whatever manifestations they exist, their cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, right? And this cannot be understood by the so-called scholars and the so-called people who try to follow these so-called vows of observing certain things. And it's just useless. The Supreme Lord can be understood only by devotional service. Jai. It is said that Bhaktya Mama Vijanati, 1855. Anyone? It's okay.
Anyway, you should recite it. We'll ask it.
Bhaktya Mama Vijanati. Srila Prabhupada said,
Yes, coming.
Srila Prabhupada said that it's easy to understand the Lord by rendering devotional service and by serving the lotus feet of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Lord. So yeah, one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. When one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Isn't it better than liberation? Isn't it better than just merging into Brahman effulgence where there's nothing and you lose your identity for a while? So, okay, moving on to the next translation, 48.
O Supreme Lord, you are actually the air, the earth, fire, sky, and water. You are the objects of sense perception, the life airs, the five senses, the mind, consciousness, and false ego. Indeed, you are everything subtle and gross, material elements, and anything expressed, either by the words or by the mind, are nothing but you.
Jai. So, this is all pervasive conception of Supreme Personality of Godhead, which explains how he spreads everywhere and anywhere, that he's in all the atoms and just everywhere. Supreme Personality of Godhead is spread everywhere. So, Srila Prabhupada also mentions in the purport that everything is Brahman, the Supreme Brahman, which is Lord Krishna. Nothing exists without him. And Lord in Bhagavad Gita 9.4, he also says, I exist everywhere and everything exists in me, yet I am not visible everywhere. The Lord can be visible only through devotional service. Supreme Personality of Godhead stays where his devotees are. He's always with us. And the only way you can start feeling his presence, his mercy, and start seeing him is by rendering devotional service unto the Lord. Chai. The next one. Who wants to read? Amala Harinam Prabhu. Bless you.
Neither the three modes of material nature, Sattva Guna, Rajaguna, and Tamoguna, nor the predominating entities controlling these three modes, nor the five gross elements, nor the mind, nor the demigods, nor the human beings can understand your lordship, for they are all subjected to birth and annihilation. Considering this, the spiritually advanced have taken to devotional service. Such wise men hardly bother with Vedic study. Instead, they engage themselves in practical devotional service.
Jai. This translation is pretty straightforward, and it explains that Bhaktya Mama Vijanati, only by devotional service can the Supreme Lord be understood. The intelligent person, the devotee, does not bother much with practices that were mentioned earlier. He does not care about them because he does not really desire liberation. All he wants is eternal, devotional service. He wants to eternally render devotional service unto the Lord. And after understanding the Supreme Lord through devotional service, such devotees are no longer interested in studies of Veda. Indeed, this is confirmed by Srila Prabhupada. And he says that what is the use of explaining them in different ways? No one needs to study any more Vedic literatures, nor does anyone need to describe them by philosophical speculation. It is all useless, because all it does is, going on to the same point again and again, coming back to the same things, the same material world with different bodies, and it's just not worth it. Let's move on to the next translation, 50. Yes, Venkatesh Prabhu.
Therefore, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, the best of all persons, to whom prayers are offered, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, because without rendering 6 kinds of devotional service unto you, offering prayers, dedicating all the results of activities, worshipping you, working on your behalf, always remembering your lotus feet, and hearing about your glories, who can achieve that which is meant for the
Paramahamsas. Jai. Can we read that again, actually, all together? Therefore, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, best of all persons, to whom prayers are offered, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you without offering prayers, dedicating all those activities, worshiping you, working on your behalf, always remembering your lotus feet, and praying about your glories, who can achieve that which is meant for Paramahamsas. So, starting from the start of his prayers, he explains everything. He's talking about the whole process of what is happening with us, why we're so lost in this material world, and how can we save ourselves. And so, in conclusion to his prayers, he says that without rendering 6 kind of devotional service, one cannot understand you. And with offering prayers, dedicating all the results of the activities, worshipping you, working on your behalf, always remembering your lotus feet and hearing about your glories, we can achieve what is meant for the Paramhamsas. The Paramhamsas, who are Paramhamsas? Would anyone like to share anything about that? Prabhu? No? Anyone?
Paramahamsas are pure devotees of Krishna.
Paramhamsas are the pure devotees of Krishna. So,
the positive and like a stone.
yes.
Milk out of the mixture of milk and water. That's what it means.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. So they only see good, and the qualities of the Paramhamsas, we can develop all those qualities by these 6 kinds of devotional services. And Prahlad Maharaj, he concludes his prayers by saying that anyone who wants to attain your lotus feet, they can simply follow these 6 devotional services, practices, and they can attain your lotus feet. So starting with the whole point of, how people engage in sense gratification and they keep getting entangled in this material world, and by so-called silence or by just restricting your senses, it's impossible to be liberated even in this age. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that, we were reading the other day, right? That you want to share what we read about liberation and what's the best?
You can share.
I can share. Okay, sure. So it was a conversation, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he ended saying that in this age, you cannot not work. We're all working, studying, we're all doing some kind of mundane activities, which are not mundane because we're offering all the results to Krishna, but all the other people, we have to work to survive and to sustain ourselves. We have to work, we have to earn money, and we have to go to school, we have to learn about all the things that are really just useless, but we have to do it, and it's impossible. So instead of stopping all of that and trying to stop yourself from doing any kind of activity, all you can do is do those activities but offer the results and offer the fruits to Krishna and keep Krishna in center. And that's how you can stay in this material world and go back to Godhead. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, that just instead of subtracting anything, just add Krishna. That's the best way to live your life. And then this whole point of people who keep desiring material things and people who keep desiring all the good so-called stuff in life, it's all just useless, and it ends up in this, cycle of birth and death. And so, okay, conclusion, just gotta refer to my points. So both the material allurements, both gross and subtle, are obstacles on the path of realizing Krishna. However, through devotional service, humility, and dependence on Krishna's mercy, one can transcend these obstacles. In Bhagavad Gita, in one of the shlokas, Krishna also says, Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That these material energy and these three modes of material nature, they're very difficult to transcend. It's difficult to transcend them. But one who just surrenders unto me and renders devotional service unto me can easily transcend over these modes of material nature and come to the level of Brahman. So some practical takeaways that we can take from today's class is that reflect on what material attachments still remain in our life, right? We have to take some time out and think about what is it that I'm still thinking about a lot. What is it what kind of activity am I still doing that I'm not putting Krishna in the center, right? We have to, it's important to take time and at the end of the day reflect on the activities that we did and see out what the purpose was, try to figure out what the thought process was. And if there was no thought process, then it's mundane and it's not needed. So reflecting on our activities from time to time, it's very important. Another one is emphasize the importance of humility, prayer, and consistent devotional service. While we go through our lives day by day, this is something that we usually miss, which is being grateful for what we have. And it's important that at the end of the day, you express your gratitude towards Krishna, right? Just say that, oh, I'm grateful that I have this body, so I'm able to render devotional service unto you. I'm grateful to have a house. I'm grateful to have my parents. I'm grateful for everything, Krishna, that you've provided me. And I very humbly want to keep serving you. So writing these kind of prayers and reflecting every day is very important. And something that we also should be mindful of is subtle attachments. Vishaka Prabhu was talking about in the Ishta Goshti. We all have subtle attachments that we're unaware of, and those, they end up, trapping us in a way. There are obstacles on the path of advancement, right?
Can you give some example or one example of subtle attachments?
Subtle attachments. The one that, why I brought this point up is when Vishaka Prabhu mentioned it in Ishta Goshti. She's getting shy. When she mentioned it in Ishta Goshti, she said that subtle attachment, like sleeping on only one side of the bed. I have some subtle attachments as well. And I'm sure that most of them I'm just not aware of yet. But some of them that I'm still aware of is that this is kind of childish, but I like to keep my stuffed toys around when I go to sleep. So those are subtle attachments, and those are kind of bad. Being attached to a non-living object, it doesn't even serve any kind of purpose. If I was attached to Srimad Bhagavatam, that would be very nice. But that's one example of subtle attachments. Would you like to give an example from your life?
I cannot particularly remember anything, but I would say that
Sweets?
There's a particular sweets, yes, that is one thing. In men's ashram washroom, there's a particular shower, and I prefer to take shower. So that is my subtle attachment.
So, see, it could be the smallest thing that you don't think twice before doing or just engaging in. Those are the subtle attachments which end up being big obstacles on the path of advancement. So that said, I would want to open the floor for some questions, and also it'd be nice if we would all think of something practical that we can take away from Prahlad Maharaj's prayers.
So
Shaka
it
Prabhu.
was a very nice class. The verse that we recited, the purport of that verse was talking, I think, is saying something about, explaining something about Grihastha ashram. So, and there are many Prabhupada disciples who are sannyasis and at the same time some are Grihasthas. And so I mean, it's quite confusing. So we should get married or we should not get married? And the people who are already married, is that something wrong? Is there something wrong there? Is everyone supposed to be brahmachari?
I will try to explain it from my understanding, but if anyone would like to add anything, you're welcome to do so. So it's depending on the kind of person you are, you can either choose a brahmachari life or either choose a grahastha life, and both are okay. Srila Prabhupada, he didn't say that, oh, you only have to be a sannyasi, you have to be a brahmachari to go back to Godhead. He said that grahasthas are very powerful because they have support, and it's important. So the purport, the translation is talking about grahamedis who are mundane, who don't know how to run their household and who don't know how to behave properly. They engage in mindless sexual activities, which is useless. Srila Prabhupada used to say that, grahasthas are, being a grahastha is okay. The only reason or purpose behind sexual activities would be to bring a Krishna conscious child into this world, and so both is good. The translation, however, it talks about mindless activities which are not good.
Even the second line explains, it says Gramedis, so-called Grihasthas. It sounds like there is two categories, Gramedis and Grihasthas. So it's good to be a Grihastha and it's not good to be a Gramedi Grihastha. So keep Krishna in the center, do service together, and Gramedi did don't do.
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yes. Chai.
Yes.
I wanted to add something to your point. I think Srila Prabhupada said that all women should get married and all men should remain brahmachari. And the way that devotee explained it to me is that even if a person is married, like a man, if he's married to someone, if he's still able to restrain his senses, he's still considered brahmachari like that. So that's how the devotee explained what Srila Prabhupada was trying to talk about. And Dinal, I wanted to say one point that I liked. You said that instead of subtracting something, it's better to just add Krishna. So I like that point. But also, I had a question. Like, what's so wrong with subtle attachments? Like, what's so wrong if I have a preference for using a certain shower in the men's washroom or something? I don't understand.
What's the big deal?
What's the big deal? Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Prabhu, no, you go ahead.
Well, it just kind of like binds you. You're not free, right? Like if there's something nicer waiting for me. Let's say you're a traveling brahmachari, and there is a big opportunity waiting for you, maybe in some other temple to start another Krishna house. For example, like let's take example of Briha. He has, he was quite attached to Toronto, and he had a hard time leaving Toronto. So, but imagine like if he has another good opportunity waiting for him to please Krishna. But what are you attached to? Oh, I don't know about that ashram, but this ashram is very nice. My morning program is amazing here. Everyone is so nice. And then, so that means like, somewhere you are attached to this, which is not pleasing Krishna. What will please Krishna? Even if you just go and try it something, right? So you're attached to this shower. For example, Monil took an example, like you're attached to this shower. This means like another shower is available maybe, but you don't want to use that. So you're okay to get late for your japa and morning program, but you're not ready to use another shower, right? So of course preference is fine, right? Like I sleep better this side, I sleep better that side. This is all fine, but if there is a situation, and then it's a problem because when you get so used to it, then it's a problem for anyone. Even like some brahmacharis or brahmacharis, they sleep only on yoga mat. And then it's a problem for them when they don't have a yoga mat. when they have they'll be they have there's no space for them to put a yoga mat and they have to sleep on the bed. Then they cannot sleep on the bed either. So attachment in any way is not fine. Like what Kalakanta Prabhu was explaining one time, we should be like water. So you put me in a cup, I'll take the shape of that. You put me in a jug, I'll take a shape of that. And so that's why sexual attachments are, and you don't know, sometimes they creep in a very, in a way which can lead to fight. Like I'm attached to this office. And I will not move this office. People can move all around, like I will be sitting here. So things like that. I hope that makes sense.
As long as it's a preference, it's fine. But if it starts to become an attachment, that might hinder. Yes. Is it answered?
That's a very good point. Preference is fine. Attachment is not fine.
Just about Grihastha thing. Grihastha couples, they give chance to a lot of demigods, a lot of souls to come into this world and get Krishna Prema, because the opulences that they have in heavenly planets, it's hard for them to get liberated from that. So, and they cannot afford to be born in many families. Only way is to win.
Yeah, because you never know when Maya will just, snatch you away. Chai. Yes, Sarthak Prabhu. We'll just take Sarthak Prabhu.
Sorry. The question that Abhinay Prabhu asked about attachments. Even our Goswamis, they would sleep under one tree and next day they would go sleep under the next tree. So even on that level, they were also afraid of getting attached. So in our levels, we should definitely be afraid. We should definitely check out.
Exactly, and it's subtle because it's hard to notice. It's subtle because, we have like maybe hundreds of those, but we just don't know. So that's why they're subtle, and that's why reflection is very important. So that's one thing that we can apply practically in life. Jai.
I had a question and a reflection, but I will be sharing the reflection and I'll ask a question after the class. So my reflection was that I was reading something and I found something about detachment. So detachment is not doing something, like not restricting the negative attachment, but having a positive engagement. That is actually detachment. So that is very important, to have something positive. If you just are trying to not do something, you will definitely end up doing that same thing.
Yeah.
But if you have a positive engagement, then there are better chances of you not doing that.
That's very nicely said.
Question is like, it's a big question. Like demigods, they are way more intelligent than us, right? They have a higher intelligence and they are better in every aspect than us. Then why we humans, we take up to devotional service, and they being demigod, they end up doing sense gratification?
Vishaka Prabhu.
You will go first.
It's like we saw in the prayers too, like Prahlad Maharaj, when Narsingha, they took avatar, demigods came, they were praising, they were not praising Prahlad Maharaj, but they were kind of thankful that they got their possessions back. They cannot give you something that they don't have. That's why they just get puffed up. They give the benedictions, which they regret on later, and they don't have that devotion on them, because the opulences, the pleasure on heavenly planets, it's next level compared to here. Our kind of place is so temporary that as soon as we do it, we regret it the very next second. But over there, it's different.
Queen Kunti says, right,
Shvarya Shruta Shrirbir Idamana Madapuman Naivarhatya Vidatum Vai Rama Kinchana Gocharam.
She says that all those like good birth, good beauty, high knowledge, all those are disqualifications. Or it makes it harder for one to become subservient to Krishna, right? So demigods have a higher standard of all these things. So in that way, it's a little harder for them to give them up.
Yeah, those who are materially impoverished, they have a good chance of, being in their right mind and approaching Krishna the right way.
Just adding to both of Anjali Abhinav's point is, Bhakti Purushottam Swami Maharaj explains that every living entity from Brahma to an ant has a propensity to forget. That's possible. And our human life is the best one because like you have best of both worlds. You're a little nice to, and then at the same time you're so basically it's a heaven and hell. Like both things you experience at the same time. And he gives the example of, for example, Brahmaji. He forgot the position of Krishna. He was the one who went to pray and asked Krishna to come. And then he's the one who forgot that Krishna descended and stole the cowherd boys. Right? So he forgot, and at the same so it's nice to just take shelter, like what Brahma did. Brahma actually following Brahma's footsteps in this case is very nice. Like even though Krishna excused him from this, he did not felt convinced, and he went to a part of Navadvip, and he was crying there and asking Lord Chaitanya to appear because he was not satisfied, and then his prayer full of surrender, very similar to Prahlad Maharaj's prayer, was so nice that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu agreed to have him in his Leela as Srila Haridas Thakur. So you see like that everyone has forgetfulness, but as far as if you can remember, so that's why demigods like also forget. Like they don't care. They don't care. Even like devotees, if things go right, they don't care. Like if you all have seen Steve Jobs, his interview, like he says like in his bad days he walked miles to get free food at Hare Krishna temple, right? But then when his days got better, what did he do? Nothing, right? It happens. It can happen. And we were very opulent and comfortable and everything she was saying.
Yeah, even for me, when life is going, when life's rough, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna read, I'm gonna offer prayers, and then only on certain good days do I remember to write a letter to Krishna or Srila Prabhupada. So it's kind of sad that even as a devotee, we're conditioned, and it's easy to forget. But thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Haribol. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.